How's everybody doing? Welcome to the fish room. A little breeding for profit update. So it's getting pretty late. I'll be completely honest, it's around 2 o'clock. I'm tired, I want to go to bed, but I know I have certain plecos and things in the fish room that I need to feed. One of the top 3 most important things when you're breeding fish for profit is you need to feed your fish. You have to be consistent. It's so easy to skip that extra feeding, go away for the weekend, not feed your fish for a day. It's one thing to keep fish alive and keep them healthy. It's a totally different thing if you want to keep fish and reproduce them and breed them and raise them. So I came home from work, I fed my flake food, a lot of my guppies and my rams, angelfish, but the plecos, they like to feed at night also. So I'm going to go through, we're feeding some algae wafers tonight. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you some of the tanks, and I know this might be a little off topic, it's a feeding video, but it's so important whenever you're breeding fish, especially when you're trying to breed fish for profit. Before you can take those fish, you got those plecos, you want to take them to the store, you want to sell them online, you want to sell them at the auction, whatever you guys do. You have to get them to sellable size, and you have to get those adults to keep reproducing. So if you're not feeding them consistent and giving them large enough amounts, they're not going to do that for you. They're not going to grow, you're going to lose fish. The parents aren't going to spawn, they're not going to have as many babies when they do breed. So let's go through, I'm going to show you some of the plecos I have, do a little bit of a fish room update at the same time. So let's go through, I'm feeding some algae wafers, and as always, I always like to post any products I'm using in the description. So go ahead, check that out on my website down there too. But let's go ahead, let's look at some of the tanks. Let's see how the plecos are doing. Let's go ahead and do a little nighttime feeding. So we're just going to go tank by tank. I got the food in my hand, so I'm shuffling things around. But down here, I have some angelfish, but I also have a lot of breeders that I'm keeping for sale and for future breeding. You can see I actually got this one big guy. I did a video on him. You can see he's still doing well. That's a nice big male albino on the front left. You can see I got males and females, but I'm going to give them 2 full algae wafers. I'll go through at the end of the video and show them actually eating the food. This tank here, I have a new pair of super reds and a grow out group of a old spawn, which I have some commons and albinos. So you can see they're in there. I'm just throwing full wafers in if I can. With one hand I'll break them up. So there goes, we got 1.5 in this tank. They'll usually eat 2 to 3 wafers every morning and night, and their food from earlier is already all gone. They're starting to feed down here, as you can see. But we'll keep going through. I have a lot of tanks of plecos right now. Here we have some younger guys. They have a little bit of food left in there, so they're not going to get any food right now. I got some super reds in here. I'm growing out. They have some food, but let's go ahead to the tanks that have more fish that already ate all their food. Here you can see I have a nice long fin female and a common female. The males are hiding. There's a male. But I'll break up some wafers in there. Also a guppy sail tank, so I'm kind of maximizing this tank to do more for me. But these guys will get some wafers as well. They'll probably get another 2 wafers. Sorry, I'm shuffling things around. But these guys will all sink to the bottom. It's very important. If you ever get any of these wafers, you do not want them to float. It's good for live bears and things like that. But if it floats, their plecos are not going to feed on it, so they're not going to get their food. See, there's my breeder male in this tank with a whole bunch of babies. So this is a very important tank. I need to feed it at least twice a day, and they'll get 3 wafers in there. Over here, I have another tank of kind of a group breeding. I'll give them about 3 wafers. Break them up, spread them out. These are cool. They're producing some reds and some long fins, if I can spot any. But you can see there's all different ages in here. There's one of the females. They're hanging on the sponge filter. I did a video on a matin sponge filter I just added to the fish room in one of my 10 gallons also. Let me spot one of the reds in here because they are really cool. There's a long fin right there. There's a common long fin. But the parents are het, albino, and super red. So the parents, that longfin there was a longfin albino and a super red female. So they have a lot of cool genetics in them. This is a sale tank. Like I was saying, you gotta breed these up to a size you can sell them. So there's a few of those tanks at the beginning with the real small guys. Hopefully next month or two they'll be this size I can sell them. Keep going around. Here we have a tank which is all out of food, and it's very important, this tank especially, how young these plecos are. They don't have any food in this tank, and they definitely need to have a constant food source. So I'll drop some wafers in for these guys. We got a floater. There it goes, it just sank. So if that was floating, I would have had to pull it out and feed a different wafer, make sure it sinks. You gotta be observant with that. This is a tank of grow outs, which came from that tank I was just talking about, how they throw some different genetics. There's one of the longfin super reds. Really cool fish, it's one of my favorites. Longfin and a red, so that's very cool. And I have some other fish I'm just growing out. Some commons, some normal reds. There's a few calicos back there. Here we have a ram tank, and there's some breeding plecos, so they'll get a half wafer in there. There's one of them in the back. I got a flashlight too. I'll probably pull that out whenever I'm showing them feed. Here I have a mixed tank of some long fins, albinos, and there's a super red male in here. They'll get some wafers. And sorry I'm kind of jumping around, but I will go back with not a food container in my hand. You'll get a better sight on these fish. But this tank, they're still breeding. I got a lot of babies, 2 different generations. So there's some real little guys. There's a long fin back there. A lot of long fins. Some albinos are thrown too, which is really cool because there's no albino adults in this tank. But they'll get a few wafers. And I'm also breeding some purple deltas in here, the guppies. This tank here is a project of the spotted plecos, and a male is already taken to the cave, which is really cool. Hopefully get some breeding going on. So these guys, I'm just conditioning them to breed. So they could get an algae wafer maybe every other day, and they would grow and do fine, but they're not going to breed for me. Up here I have some guppies breeding. These are those purple deltas with some fry, but I have a long fin pair in here somewhere. And we'll probably find them later after they smell that wafer sitting in there. Here we have just a handful of mixed commons and albinos. We're growing out. They are ready for sale. These guys will be on the website. But they'll get about a half wafer to a wafer every other feeding. So I'll vary the sizes. Down here's that tank I totally stripped all of their hiding places of. And the parents was where we found that big male. So these guys are just strictly growing out. So I'm gonna give them 2 full wafers, and you can see that it's just covered on that driftwood of plecos. So they could probably handle maybe 3 or 4, but I don't wanna overfeed this tank and let that sponge filter have to do more work than it needs, because you can see it's a little cloudy. Over here we have some more grow outs. There's some long fins in here. There's one on that piece of wood. They'll get a wafer, but I'll break it in half. So you can see there's some real little babies and some medium-sized ones. There's a real little long fin. Right, sorry guys. Got my camera flipped around, so I keep putting my hand in front. Sorry about that. But there's like a common, if it'll focus. Underneath, that's a long fin, very young. Up here we have some super red fry, some baby plecos. They'll get a wafer. I'll split into half, and I'll put half on either side of the tank. And I'm also breeding these fancy guppies. They got some babies in here. Up here are some rams, about a month away from sale, and some long fins. So this tank will get a half wafer as well. And this tank, last but not least, definitely not least my favorite tank of breeding. I have some Super Reds breeding. This is my first time successfully growing out a pair and breeding them. So they're gonna get maybe 2 wafers in this tank. Split it up. And they're all of this tank. I got 2 generations of plecos in here. Their parents are still in there breeding. So this is important. I'm feeding not only grow outs, but also breeders. So you wanna spread that food out and you make sure they get plenty of food. So hopefully I didn't miss any, excuse me, what guys, guys and girls. Hopefully I didn't miss any of the pleco tanks. I got some shrimp in here, they'll get a wafer. But let me go ahead, feed any tanks that I missed. But we're gonna go through and actually check those fish out, and I'll talk for a minute at the end. But a little quick glance at the fish room. And it's late, so kind of grinding through making this video. I wanna show you guys as much content as I can. But let's go ahead, let's get the flashlight out and let's see what's already feeding. So they're already starting to feed in there. I'm gonna show you guys that. I wanna kind of chime in and say, top 3 things I think are most important for breeding fish. First thing, obviously you wanna make sure you have adult fish to breed. So you need to have a male and female, they have to be healthy. Make sure their stomachs aren't sunken in, they don't have any fungus on their fins, anything like that. Your fish are healthy, you're good to go, that's step 1. Number 2, more important than food is good water. So you need to have a nice water change schedule where your nitrates stay low. You have a nice cycled aquarium, that's very important. And you wanna make sure you do those frequent water changes, not every day, which you can do, but maybe once a week. You're gonna go through, do at least a 50% water change. And you're not gonna go home and do it, oh, he said 50%, I'm gonna do it today. And it's been a month since your last change. You wanna gradually get them conditioned to a water change schedule. So say you're every 3 weeks, go to every 2 weeks, every week and a half, every 10 days, once a week, maybe every 4 days for a while until they trigger a spawn, until they breed. You wanna gradually get your nitrates lower and lower, or you wanna space it out where it's every day. You don't wanna jump to 2 weeks. You wanna go maybe 3 days, 6 days, a week, 10 days, things like that. You wanna condition your fish and make sure the water stays clean. And then, like I said, this is the most important thing, is food. That's gonna determine, once you have the fish, once they're healthy, once you're on a good water change schedule and you're doing a good job for them, you need to feed them consistent, large amounts where they can always have food available, they're fat, they're healthy, and then they can actually have enough energy to breed and produce eggs, and then the babies can also feed on any food in the tank also. So once you're feeding the parents and they breed, now you need to slowly ramp up that food schedule to make sure that they keep breeding, they keep growing, and you can keep doing that, and eventually you have those fish big enough to sell and to grow out more fish that you can breed in the future that'll be even nicer colors. They'll be more conditioned to your water, your pH. Say you're breeding rams and your pH is at 8 and it's super high and you want it to be at 7. Or they're coming from 7, yours is 8, and you want to keep them at 8. So get those breeders ready to go, have them finally live and breed in your higher pH, and then their babies, keep them at that 8.0 pH, and you want to breed them, and that's all they're going to know. You're going to have a line-bred fish that now you're almost changing their background, where they're not used to living in the rivers where they have a 5 or a 6 pH. Now they're used to 8, and it's your own domesticated strain of fish, which is so cool. I really think that's fascinating with breeding any animal and fish particularly, that you can change any fish to be your own. So it's very cool. It's very cool for selling. You can have more people enjoy a certain type of fish in the hobby that they can't regularly keep. So you can kind of be that guy that I breed discus in really hard water, or I don't use RO water, and they thrive and they do great. You can breed that and you can line breed it where those fish are stronger and they're used to that, and then more people that have your same water are gonna have great success. So little jumping in there, throwing some more advice out there for breeding for profit. But let's go ahead, let's look at the fun stuff. Let's see some of these plecos feeding on those wafers. So hopefully I don't scare them when I'm talking and getting close. I got a little swarm of plecos in here. So over here you can see all the babies feeding on that wafer. Everyone else is moving around. I got that female, that super red. She's feeding over there as well. And we got her boyfriend checking her out. He might come out of the cave and feed. But he's also gonna probably draw her in there to breed soon, and she'll be ready to breed because she'll be healthy and fat. So that's really good. We'll go down to the adult tank where these guys aren't as aggressive eaters because they're already full grown. They just need to stay fat. They don't really need to eat constantly because they're not growing. So I got some angelfish feeding down there. Some of these guys are still hanging out, and they will feed more at night, which is why it's so important to do this night feeding whenever the lights cut off. And then I got my little bulldog pleco. I've showed him before. He's not a breeder, he's kind of a pet. I might sell him. Someone emailed me about him. They're gonna keep him in like a show tank. He's kind of cool. But we got a pleco back there working his way to the food. Up here, they're feeding on this wafer. It's already been in there, but it's a constant food source. Check out that little baby. He's taking some bites off that wafer, and that's so important for his growth and his health. And they all have that access to the food. The reds are still hiding from when I scared them. Down here we got a swarm of plecos and guppies. So here's that male that came out, the red. He was hiding in the cave, but he's coming out to feed. The female's there, we got some babies on there. And they're breaking off little chunks of food for the guppies to feed off of. So much action going on, it's hard to focus. But cool tank in here, a lot of color. Always enjoy a guppy tank. This tank here is gonna be cool to see if I don't scare them. There's probably a ton of activity. Little pleco city in here, they're doing great. And I did spook them, but see, we got some sellable fish, we have some breeders, and we also got some tiny babies. See that little guy in the middle? We got an albino, some commons, but they need that food very much. So they're gonna keep feeding, growing, doing great, and they'll be for sale in the future, as long as they keep doing well, which I have intentions to. That guy's pretty cool. Check out that pleco. He's got a little bright spot on his top fin. I might pause the video and go out and catch him out. That's a really cool albino pleco that's got unusual color in its tail. Maybe I'll catch it out, we'll see. Get a good shot of him. Because once I put a net in there, I might not see him again for a while. This tank over here, I'm gonna zoom in. I may not get the best quality, but you can see there's so many babies in this tank. You can just imagine if all these fish that swarmed to this food didn't get their food tonight, how important that is for their health and for their growth. So let's see if I can slowly go up there. I'm not worried about scaring the babies, I'm worried about scaring an adult that will spook all the babies. So let's go ahead, we'll sneak up on these guys. Zoom out to get our focus. But these guys are just feeding away, and they'll have that food all night. And you can see now some of those reds I was talking about. Maybe if I can, there's one behind them, there's some calicos. They're behind the wafer right now. I saw two of them. There was a smaller long fin, and there was a bigger one that was more red. See, there's a red in the middle, and there's a calico. Those two right there in the middle of the screen. Real close to us, there's a larger calico, half behind the front of the tank. That's a really cool colored pleco. I cannot wait to raise those up and start breeding them. So there's a darker one, long fin, and there's more of a red. So these guys are super cool. I'm real zoomed in on the camera, so we're losing a little bit of the clarity, but you can definitely see it. Got a big female in there, one of the breeders. There's a long fin albino back there. So they're just throwing so many different types of plecos, which is just really cool. Makes it very enjoyable and rewarding in breeding these fish. There's a long fin red up there. So really enjoying this tank right now and all the success it's having. But the tank next to us, these are the sale tank. They're getting bigger, so not super hungry, but they are skittish in these big numbers when I come up real close. They're used to kind of pushing each other away and kind of not fighting, but you know, I mean, pleco behavior. So they spook each other all the time a little bit. So when I come up real close, you think I'm another pleco or another fish. They'll kind of jolt away. But a lot of, good sized plecos. Excuse me guys, I had a little bit of a yawn, it's getting late, but a lot of cool plecos in there, and they are for sale. They'll be on my website at biancosfish.com. See what these guys are doing in here. Can't find the food, it looks like someone pushed it to the back. There it is in the back. So they're ready for a water change, and you can see all that debris on the bottom because I'm feeding them a lot. These yellows actually look better on camera than the plecos because they're not afraid and they're not feeding on that food right now, so up front. Those are cool yellow half blacks. They're on the website. So those guys are all looking great. No plecos in there. Down here, the babies are finding the food. And the longer it's in the tank, the more it softens up and they can feed on it even more. So right now, it may be an hour or two and there's not gonna be much of a dent in that food. But then once it softens up after that first hour, half hour, they may eat it the next hour, like all at once. So these guys are cool. They have a really cool pattern. They're just like a common, but they came from a really cool mix. So who knows, when they grow up, they might be a different color. I mean, they're an awesome pattern. Very cool fish in here. They might be like a calico. I was hoping they would be. They came from a, I think a red tank with some long fins. I was hoping I'd get some calico long fins. Not really sure I'm gonna call these guys, so if you can tell what color that is more than I can, let me know. I actually really appreciate that. Some of these in-between colors sounds funny, but I'm almost like partially colorblind to a few shades of color, so it's hard for me to tell, but I can definitely see it. It's just hard to determine what it really is. So getting a light on them, getting up and close like this, I've never seen them like this before in person. So I see them, but whenever I'm looking at the tank like this in the morning, I just see a bunch of plecos. When you get up there real close to the camera, you really can see a lot more. In here, I got a female feeding. These guys will kind of take turns going up, maybe 1 or 2 feet at a time, and they'll scare each other away and they'll go to the other wafer and they'll go back and forth. But they're full grown, so they're not super hungry. In here, they're swarming on the wafers. Getting some pretty good shots. I hope you guys can get good quality through the camera and online when I update and everything and upload it. Hopefully it all comes through in good quality. You want that good pixelation. But this tank's doing well. They're just scattered everywhere, so it's hard to get one fish feeding on it. But they'll break that food up. They're all gonna keep feeding, but they're doing well. Over here, not a whole lot of motion because these guys are getting bigger. So they're like adults. They're not gonna be starving when I feed them. But they got the food in the tank. They can keep eating on it. The male came out of his cave. You can tell that he's smelling the food, but he hasn't found it just yet. And once those lights cut off, he definitely will come back out and feed again. Guppies are hanging out, looking good as always. Oh look, actually I knew those babies in here, but check it out. So these guys actually bred for me. That might be a longfin albino or just an albino. So another cool cross. These are just 2 longfin commons, and they're throwing albinos in different colors. So those might turn out to be a bit of a red. It's a little guppy baby. But I actually saw the first baby in there this morning. I almost forgot about it. There's kind of like a common. So that's exciting stuff. I mean, those are just leaving the cave. They're brand new babies. See if I can find the female in here. There's another pleco. That's cool. I get so I get excited anytime I spot new fish. There's some in the back. So I mean, like today, this is so important. If I didn't come through and feed these guys, I said, oh, they'll be fine till tomorrow. Those babies may not survive because they're not getting food as soon as they're leaving the cave. I mean, they're leaving that cave today and this morning, and they need to find food. They need to eat. They need to grow. And if they don't get that food, their stomachs are going to shrink up, their metabolism is going to stop, they're not going to feed as well later on, and you're not going to grow this fish up to adult size and breed them, or to 1 inch, 2 inch size where you can sell them at the store. So that's a cool little find there. These guys they're on a ton of acrylic yarn. I use that to let the guppies drop fry and the babies can hide. But some food's below, and you can see they're down there fighting for it or reaching around for it. The rest are taking their time getting there, and they're all pretty fat, so they're not starving. Well, I'll leave the reds for last. Best for last. These guys are feeding down here. And you can see there's a variety of sizes, but commons and albinos, a lot of good fish. The reds and the long fins kind of are a little bit newer to me right now, so they're more exciting. But I always appreciate a tank that's this heavily stocked, that has been breeding so well. And you can see it's not nearly as clear as that tank, so that's why they're not getting more food. But over here, the long fins and commons are feeding great. They found the food just in minutes. Got some guppy frying here, and they're actually gonna go into a hang-on box here in the next day or two. I'm gonna do a video on that. So if you guys aren't subscribed, go ahead, subscribe, and you'll get a notification whenever that video is posted. Here's the reds, looking good. So here's some in the back too. And they're feeding on it, but they're not swarming yet. They get fed a good bit in this tank, so they're never starving. This food didn't make it to the bottom. I might move that. So it's very important to watch your tanks and be observant. The plecos will make it there because it's on the yarn and it sank, but they're not gonna feed on as much as if it were on the bottom. Here's that ram tank with the long fins. They're skittish because there's so many fish in here, and they kind of jump around in a school. So they kind of feed off that energy from the rams, but they'll be feeding on that. And these guys are looking really good. They'll be some nice future breeders or some pairs for sale on the website. Rams always look good under the flashlight, even though they're only about 2 months old. They're just at that age where I can start selling them, but I have older ones that I'll sell first, and these guys will be next. So they're looking good. And let's go ahead, let's wrap this up with the super reds. You can see there's a baby on the sponge filter, so they're still breeding. That's probably a 2-week-old baby, and these guys over here are maybe a month or 2 old. Actually, they're about 2 months. Yeah, 2 months old. They were born on 9/1, or that's when I spotted them first. But here they are. They'll usually swarm pretty good for me. But as you can see, there's the food I just added. Here's an old piece of food from this morning. So there's still food. They're not starving in there. They already had a food source, but they would have finished that by tonight. And now they're going to have more food to feed on. And I mean, that's just a really good shot of some fish. So some of them are super red, some are like a calico. You can see that one to the left of the algae wafer, it's smaller. Got some spotting in his back. Still super red though. But pretty cool stuff. These guys up here are really nice reds. So I'm gonna go through and probably catch a few dozen of these for holdbacks. And those two side by side would be great contestants to further breed this strain. Versus this guy right in the middle. It's a little bit larger. Really nice fish. But he's almost more of an orange versus a red. So you're looking for the darkest reds to kind of keep that strain going and getting nicer fish over time. Another kind of a step back look at the tank. And I have some red delta frying here growing out. I removed the parents, so I want to get any more generations of babies. And I can grow these out consistently with the same size, so when I sell them, it'd be easy to catch them and sell them. Or if I want to pick future breeders, I can do so when they're maybe a month or two older from now. But if you guys made it to the end, please comment below. I'd love to know if you guys are watching the entire video and it was something you're looking for. So if it's content you find interesting or helpful, Definitely comment, say I made it to the end. I appreciate it. Go ahead, look in the description. I'll post some of the products I'm using, the different acrylic yarns I use, the algae wafers, even that flashlight. I bought those flashlights on Amazon. It was like 2 for 17 bucks, and I use them every night. I use them all the time. So it's a real nice thing to look at your fish room, get some nice footage. If you're trying to sell your fish, go up there with a flashlight, get a good clear shot of them. It's a lot easier to sell your fish with good pictures. And I'm working on getting some better pictures for the website to kind of display the fish better. Let you know what they really look like when you're not seeing them in person. You're just looking on a picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and a good picture is just so important. So things like that, it's helpful. It's a little bit fun too. But thanks for watching, guys. If you're not already subscribed, go down to subscribe. I appreciate it. I'm trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Me and my buddy Lewis from Cichletscape, we have kind of like a little competition who can get there first. I brought it up. I like pushing myself. I like inspiring others and myself to do more and to strive for goals. If you can't reach the goal, that's fine. You got to at least make a goal for yourself, something you want to do. Aim high and just keep reaching for it. If you don't reach it, at least you had that goal in mind. If you do, make it even a bigger goal next time. So, like I said, thank you all for watching. Go like this video, subscribe if you're not subscribed. Stay tuned for more videos coming up. And go ahead and check out my website, biancosfish.com. Wearing my shirt today. I sell fish online and also do aquarium service in the Pittsburgh area, where I'll go and clean your tank whenever it needs cleaned, maybe once a month. And I can stock your tank with these fish behind me. So, new business, I'm real excited about it. I've been in the works for years, but I finally made that step. It was my goal by the end of the year to have a website and to have a business name picked. So I did it. That was my goal. But set goals for yourself, stay inspired, enjoy your fish, and stay tuned for the next video.